Good morning and welcome to another Managing Life's Changes Through Effective Communications. I think I'm going to drop the last piece because as we go into every discussion, we do develop that. Today's discussion, wow, I'll tell you, it is after you get into wanting to do something, when you decide to do something, be prepared that you have to ante up your stamina, improve your tempo, because it will challenge you if the desired goal, result, and even the process to deliver what it is that you're all about is something you haven't done before. And I found now I wanted to sleep in because I have to get up so early. At the same time, I said, okay, how do we, make some adjustments the night before? How can we use meditation time? And what am I doing? Today's discussion, though, is the conversation behind trauma. The conversation behind trauma. And I'm going to pull on my favorite resource, if I can find it. That's how favorite it is. I don't even have it handy. Of course I do. Here it is. Hey, 101 solution focused questions. I'm not going to inundate you with 101 questions because you'll just turn right off and go off to the next channel. And I wouldn't doubt you and blame you. Although I think that's rather unpolite. I would like to start off with, there are 5 questions that Elliot Connie shared with us on a session, which I thought, once again, reveals how, if we're shown, if we are introduced to, if we're exposed to a more supportive process, we can break through some of the drama and challenges that we seem to have become steeped in. Talking about steeped. Ta-da! Malanga tea, yeah! Look what I have. I'm not exactly sure what the... At one time I thought it was a donkey, but it's not because of the freckles on the hind. I think it's a baby doe, right? Or it's a doe. Doe being young, baby. I have to have the malanga. Gotta have the fix. So we're going to start off with 5 questions that Elliot Connie had shared with us some time ago. And I'd like to share these with you because it really does frame out, and let's do our little banners here. Ta-da! Identifying intangible assets and providing tangible results. No, we're not going to have any dancing figurines twirling across the bottom. That would be totally distracting. Let's take a look, shall we? Okay. How do we address the conversation that is, in some cases, we're struggling with? We could be struggling with what it is that's going on in our life, what it is that we're faced with each and every day, where we may begin to believe and subscribe to the fact that we don't have a solution. A very dangerous place to be in. Remember in previous live chats, of which I do have to do some more, but the podcast kind of takes the place of that. They're much shorter, only 30 minutes, and you can find them on my YouTube. Just put in Ronald M. Allen Managing Change or Managing Change Ronald M. Allen. They'll come up. And we spoke about, as we go through different experiences in life, and I like to look at both sides. We can look at the pain and suffering, which is pain and a change in our life. It can be short-term, long-term. Suffering is when we don't believe we have a solution, a resolve. Now, in some cases, the resolve can be even more painful in our perspective, anyway, at least. And then we break through. Have you ever had the experience of being underwater and trapped? And that can also be in a dream, by the way. The dream type that has you running away from the proverbial monster and your feet are going nowhere. When you're trying to break through and you're suffocating, you have that feeling, the emotional strain of suffering. We want to we want to abate that experience. So these five questions, which we're going to kick off our program with, and of course we have our little slogan, a little bit every day. Some people say, well, I can't do it. It's too much. It's too challenging. I feel overwhelmed. Absolutely. So we then ratchet it down and we say, can you do a little bit each day? Are you willing to do a little bit each day? We craft our response based on our sensitivity of what we've been fed, what we've been told by those that we're discussing and working with. Whether you're a supervisor, manager, leadership of a company, strategic project leader, parent, it's the sensitivity we bring to that experience, that moment, that engagement. So let's see our five questions. And you know what? Maybe the next time I'm going to take these questions and put them in a slide and share them with you because they're very powerful. Let's see how powerful. How can I restate the question in a more clear way, manner, form? Scripting the text, scripting the narrative, right? Why should PR people have all the fun? Reginald Lewis, why should white guys have all the fun? The book written back in the late 80s, 90s. Great book. I have it in my library. And a gentleman, Hicks, I believe, last name, worked with Reginald Lewis. Beatrice Food, for those who don't know. Beatrice Foods, well, at the time, the largest consumer product provider in the country, in the world, if I'm not mistaken. So here's a few thoughts that Elliott Connie shared with us to help us understand the question, help us give us a backdrop, right? Very often people are thrown off by your questions about their desired outcomes and future. Misunderstanding, right? A cultural difference, right? Someone's mind is loaded with emotion. So what they hear is filtered in a negative manner, right? How can I restate the question in a more clear manner? If you're a supervisor, if you're a manager, if you're bringing on board people, if you're in HR, I endear myself to those people. How can I restate the question in a more clear manner? Very often people are thrown off because of the questions about their desired outcomes and future. They're not ignoring the question, nor do they want or need to talk about the problem. So you have to find a precursor. Example, working with a number of clients. And I ask them, what is your objective? I don't give them a solution or a path to answer something we haven't developed, that they haven't given me the signal, yes, we can move forward. It's like a train out of a station. If you have a whole bunch of debris on the track, if you have a whole bunch of distractions in the terminal station, you can't set that train to move. Once again, building rapport. Once again, establishing the right tempo, right? Sensory, those antenna on the slugs. I have a cool book coming out. It's called 13 Behavioral Gambits. And each chapter has a big, beautiful picture of a slug. some with shells, some without. Plug. Who else in the person's life could answer this question better for the person you're speaking with, their perspective that they respect, and even for you, that individual who's trying to connect with your employees, trying to help your employees? Notice the precursor there was, are you actually trying to help them or brush them off? We've seen that time and time in corporations, in divisions, in general conversations with subordinate and superior, right? We talked about leadership, types of leadership control. So people can often have a hard time answering a question from their own perspective. It's like asking a business owner, give me your unique proposition. This was asked to me the other day, and I just stumbled. I was like, "Buh?" Because I've crammed so much information in my head, I have to sometimes come back and decompose that information and make sure that it is, as the newspapers, one of the mantras of the newspaper industry is, dumb it down to a 7th grade. I don't want to be so condescending. How about making it clear so a layperson could understand it? That was actually the expression when, in the late 80s, 90s, law firms and the legal industry wanted to allow their very clients to understand what the heck they were doing. So they wrote the information at a baseline that anybody, if they take the time, could understand it. Building rapport, building trust, showing your intent is favorable, is safe. Stress that word. Unfortunately, today, if not yesterday, Miriam, my wife, has told me that they found a Amish young girl who was brutally killed, and she'd been missing for some time. The intent. Another question that helps to provide backdrop to our 5 questions. However, they can answer from the perspective of someone close to them, which I kind of just alluded to, and that is just as good a reason, right? We use this approach when we say, if you have what's called a blind committee, not physical people speaking to you, you use those people's perspectives, disciplines, experience, by understanding what industry, what experience they've come from, or from an autobiography, for example, reading about their press profiles, and using that perspective as a way of addressing your concern. Because many of us will look at other people and how they've dealt with challenges, trauma, and say, that can work for me. Just as readily as we'll say Freud's substance abuse doesn't quite support all the decades of how we've endeared his processes to us. Because the irony is, society has rejected the use of substance, yet we follow an individual's research and support when that's what they use to get the outcomes. Stick to the client's desired outcome, not the other person's. Stick to the client's desired outcome. So you've got multiple stakeholders in any conversation, especially in family, especially in corporations, right? Well, we want this, we will desire that, we expect performance of. Again, late 90s, stock market was soaring. And because, and I believe it was Apple, because they didn't do as well as the market, although they exceeded their own reports and expectations, investors left them. Remember, we said previously, humans don't always make sense, right? There's a classic example of how people will favor a position, a perspective, and a desired outcome simply because, and this is partly groupthink, other people are getting favorable outcomes. And maybe they are measuring apples and oranges and they don't care. So, number one, how can I restate the question in a more clear way? And we can understand that the person's not ready. We can begin to ask questions that, first of all, discover what is their desired outcome. So our questions relate to that and not just a generalized buckshot approach. Number two, who else in their person's life could answer this question? Ask them who else they represent. Go to people that do care for them, not who are historical or bring more drama. Right? Once you identify that client's desired outcome, keep the questions focused on that. And based on their feedback, you craft your response. Not based on a textbook, not based on a template, not based on some philosophy that is not germane to the conversation at hand. Number three, wait. What trait or personal resource does this person have that can be used moving forward? What trait or personal resource? Brilliant. What do you naturally gravitate to? Boom. Slam dunk. I don't play baseball. Play rugby, cricket, swimming, falling off horses, equestrian. This is huge and can change everything in a client's life. If you want to help someone change how he or she views himself or herself in the mirror. The mirror tells it all. It's the eyes, reflective soul. That's pretty interesting. The mirror is the eyes, reflective soul. Not quite sure what that means, but we'll work it out. We'll find evidence base to support that rather creative thought. Put it out there. Let's see what happens. Focus on the traits that the client is proud of and has used to accomplish positive things. Solution focus, the future. The research shows those that survive trauma, those that survive pain, those that survive servitude, those that survive colonization, hint, hint, those that survive dehumanization are always thinking of the future. This is the driver. It's our innate desire to live, to exist. And despite the frustrations, the hurdles, if we can focus, if we can galvanize enough back end to push us, momentum, leverage, focus on the traits that the client is proud of. Don't take them to a place they're uncomfortable with. Don't take them to a place that they don't know. Don't take them to a place that they feel uncomfortable. And if you can't, back away, leave. You're no longer useful. What trait or personal resource does the person have that can be used to move them forward? That is crucial. Every day, inch by inch, it's a cinch. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because our minds are steeped in that pedagogy, educational construct. I will tell you what to do. I will tell you whether you've learned it properly. I will tell you whether you've passed and met the standards of community. Yet community is going to hell in a hat basket, right? What is the context? Number four, what is the context of this client's life? That's a big one. What is the context of this client's life? If you are traumatized just by listening, if you are become upset just by listening to their past, then you need to remove yourself from the conversation. If you begin to inflect your desires into the conversation, you should remove yourself from the conversation. If you use leading questions, fundamentals in communication, right? Leading questions as opposed to open-ended questions. You should leave the conversation. If you are in any way, and you can feel it in yourself, emotionally stimulated, in some cases, both adversely, definitely adversely, and in other cases, in a positive manner, you need to be objective. And you reflect that in the questions you ask and the direction. Got to be careful, words, direction, leading, how you develop the conversation, how you evolve that conversation with that person. Is it safe for them? Have they given you permission to go there? Have you built the right rapport? What is the context of the client's life? In order to ensure your questions are answerable, it is key to place your questions in the context of the client's life. It's not to stay in the trauma zone. Moreover, it is to ask the client, the employee, even the supervisor. You can reverse this conversation to a supervisor speaking with you and ask for clarity. That's what's so beautifully powerful about solution-focused brief questions. It's not about you, the subordinate, or certainly in a family where there are pecking orders. It's not for you to be subservient to that, the question. It is for you to ask those questions to get clarity and put the person on the other side on guard, right? On guard, absolutely, to say, wait a minute, they have boundaries, they have scruples, they have a process and a demand for respect that I have to adhere to. I have to adhere to it, otherwise they're not going to respond. And quite rightly so. They're human beings. Oh, I'm sorry, we forgot about that part. The precursor to all of this. They're human beings. Let's not go there. Even if it does not seem to have much to do with the problem, what is the connection? Find out the connection. Right? What is the connection? What is the association? Even if it is abstract, even if it is considered a figment of their imagination, right? Yeah, I told you this is not easy work. You know, the asinine aspect of the phrase soft skills. What are you talking about? You have children? You ever tried convincing your children to get out of bed, go to school, not have that proverbial third ice cream cone that the other two have dripped all over the car? That coincidentally, you created that persona that they could go there. Yeah, as a parent, absolutely. As a supervisor, manager, leader, yes, you have created the environment. And if you can't undo it, you need to be respectful and remove yourself. Be mature enough. Be intelligent enough. Move on. Seek life elsewhere. Number 4, what is the context of this client's life? We're so focused on policy and procedures, we forget that we're speaking with human beings and we see them as widgets, bricks in a wall. Number 5, what are the exact names and places in this person's life? Wow. Wow. Had a conversation with a guy in Minnesota the other day, and he said, from your response, Ron, I wasn't sure if you'd want to speak to me. And I said, why? He says, because I'm white. I said, okay, I've known a few of you. I said, okay, I've met a few of you. What does that mean? Well, what's going on? I said, what's going on is nothing new. The murdering of human beings, specifically Black human beings, has been going on for hundreds of years. You ever heard of a thing called apartheid? He said, yeah. I said, well, where do you think it came from? What do you think that was all about? This is a perpetuation of a system, of a process. So when we talk about a person's place, we cannot dumb down the historical perspective. They did a study once, of what they call terrorist organizations. And it's an interesting term when you think of colonialism literally wiping out, ethnic cleansing, like it's a new term, that Europeans did to natives of this country, over 1,000 different tribes, as there were tribes in Europe, hello, Celtic, Welsh, Irish, Scottish, and even English, which were not called English. The process of wiping out people, destroying their culture, ripping away their contact with their ancestry, which they're doing with Mexicans. The children, for 3 years now, 4 years, we had a president that believes in bastardizing and cannibalizing people. And yet we're surprised at what is now happening over and above the George Floyd incident, which again has been happening. My wife brought it to my attention that Huey, oh my goodness, the Black Panther leader, when they killed him, they killed his wife. When they killed his wife, they killed a child that was to be born. Yet we don't know this. We don't hear about this. So when we think of a context, let's look at the hardcore stuff. Or are we going to pussyfoot around? Well, let's talk about how your mommy and daddy. There is a connection. We've seen it through anthropology. We've seen it in our DNA. We've seen it in the intangible emotional connection that people who have gone through massive trauma, those who are in refugee camps for 5 and 10 years, I'm not talking 3 months, 6 months, or a year. People around the world have been in these massive refugee camps, millions of people at a time, millions of human beings. You see, that's what solution-focused brief therapy has done for me. Are you staying in the academic world where it's nice and safe and, quite frankly, meaningless unless you bring that knowledge to the street, to the road, to other human beings and show them how to apply it? It's meaningless. Do a white paper, do a position paper. Big deal. Sure, you'll get the accolades. Sure, you'll get the praise, but you'll be meaningless in the history and legacy of humanity. Always use the client's exact language. Absolutely. Don't berate the client. Don't try and dumb them down. Don't try to finagle the conversation with your highfalutin terms and your degrading manner. Don't shout. Don't holler. Tone it down, ratchet it down. Love that term, military term. So be curious about the details so you can skillfully create questions, craft questions from the client's own language. This is brilliant stuff. Why does a child keep repeating the word why? Because you haven't made a good enough argument why they shouldn't have it or should have it. You just haven't done that. And you can shout and scream and get all dramatized. The recipient is not comfortable, is not satisfied, is not satiated. You haven't been clear, right? You're not clear with your message. This is some pretty cool stuff. Yes, you can develop this skill. Someone just posted. Yes, you can. Yes, you can develop this skill if you come with the right attitude. No, I didn't say if you want to develop. I didn't say what was I thinking as I changed that. Yes, you can develop this skill if you come with the right attitude. Yeah, it's not just about saying yes, you can develop the skill. Go to the right school, right? Take the right course. No, it's more than that. It's a lot deeper than that. It's more anchored than that. So we have 5 questions here taken from Elliot Connie's solution-focused brief questions, which, by the way, just and for clarity's sake, The official term is solution-focused brief therapy. Now, most people would say, I don't need therapy. Questionable. Park that on the side. We need to remove communication obstacles, hurdles. So by framing this as solution-focused brief strategy, strategy 2, solution, a goal, an outcome, desired benefit. So solution-focused brief questions. Nobody wants to change, for example. Engage, yes. Explore, yes. Learn, it's got to be of interest to people, right? I'm not sure if everybody necessarily wants to learn. That's also a tricky one. So the 5 questions, if you care, and I will see if I can, nope, this application will not allow me to copy and paste, but I will do some, throw some moon dust on it. We have to now say Mars dust, right? And of course, you've heard talking about space, quick tangent. The first commercial space flight is happening right now. I used to collect, and I do have some of my stuff. I don't know if I have it here in this room. No, it's in the other room. We'll do a talk on how my interest in space exploration has fed my curiosity for knowledge. That's really what it's done. It's fed my curiosity for knowledge. What has fed your curiosity, or have you dumbed yourself down, as John Gatto, principal teacher up in New York State for 25 years, has written so clearly on how we strip away the interest of life, which is to be engaged in learning. It's one of the 3 essentials I've spoken about before. Always be learning, always be part of the learning process, and give back to others so that you can learn their perspective. It's not just about you teaching or telling. That's a pedagogy system, a pedagogy approach to learning. And that's why most of us dumb ourselves out, remove ourselves from society. It's been programmed into us not to try after a certain stage, the stage that education says you learn. How ridiculous. You're always learning because you're now applying what you've been taught, instructed, and what you've experienced. Now you start to actually apply it in life. Or not. So the 5 developing questions are, how can I restate the question in a more clear way? Who else in the person's life or in your own life? Hey, let's point that proverbial magnifying glass at me, Hubble telescope at me, see how deep inside you it can go. Who else in this person's life, in your life, can answer this question? What traits or personal resources, number 3, what traits or personal resources does the person have that can be used to move them forward? See that ending, move you forward to accomplish something. Number 4, what is the context of this person's or client's life? What is the context of your life? Is it something you like? Okay, no, then you have, because we're the intelligent species, you have the intelligence to redirect, refocus your energy. No, too much? Okay, no problem. Number 5, what are the exact names and places in the person's life? What are the exact names? Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, the greatest leaders on the planet, because they didn't talk about war and crushing and colonizing and capitalizing on someone's weakness. They were about raising a nation of people, right? My parents, whether they were good or bad, they gave me a personality. Now I have the instruction to decide, do I want the A or the B? What is that called? The car, the Scion, you can have with this, or you can go with that. You can go with this. Okay, keep it focused, keep it focused. How can I restate the question? Who else can help me understand the question? What traits, personal resources can I utilize? What is the context of my life, and what are the exact names, what are the resources out here, the people, places that have impacted me. These are ways of developing, nurturing a conversation. Now, I want to jump over to this gentleman, once again, my favorite. Elliott Connie has provided such an incredible, rich resources. Research on social work practices. This is examining the effectiveness of solution-focused brief therapy, a meta-analysis. This was back in 2007. And I'm looking for the gentleman whose name is Johnny Kim. Johnny Kim did this research. It is only, just looking for the number of pages, 11 pages. So it's a short white paper. And it focuses on the many practitioners, credentialed, may I add, who have done the heavy lifting. They've spent the hours in front of clients, in front of committees, in front of professional associations that have reported in and have collected the data, have sifted through the raw, tedious process, and have shown and show that solution-focused brief therapy is 73% more favorable. It delivers a faster result. And isn't that what we're all about? Getting that fast result? Wham, bam, thank you, man. And it goes through, and if you want, if you care, just shoot me an email anytime you see this video and just say you want, I'm going to see if I can make this real short for you, because you know these reports, this is a short one again, this is only 11 pages. Just say Johnny S. Kim, University of Kansas. Johnny S. Kim, University of Kansas. Just say you want that report. And I'll share this with you, because what I've also learned from Elliott Connie is that by sharing the information, the true value is in using it. There's a whole series that he's doing right now, and he's created his own university, which is absolutely brilliant. And what surprises me as a layperson to this profession, that again, from the outside, we have a perspective. We think, wow, you know, these people, they have the PhD, they have the masters, and so they're good at what they do. Yet the real challenge is the junk in the trunk that they have. Oh yeah, these people have serious junk in the trunk. And many of them actually report it. Many of them actually express it. They're like, well, I'm not sure how to do this. I've come out of this model. I've studied this methodology. I'm into this strategy. Wow, how parochial, how narrow-minded. Oh, I know you're steeped in it and you're very versed in it, and you've got the paper, which in time will start to tarnish. How do you take information and apply it to diverse populations? That's what I've learned from this. This is why I'm so enamored by it. And what I've also learned is, how can I then extend it? Do you speak to a Taiwanese the same as an indigenous Australian, or one of the criminal ancestors of the Europeans that came to Australia and have now colonized it and bastardized the people, and only recently in 1989 allowed the indigenous people to have the rights to land that's quite useless? Something that Europeans did in America with the natives. I'm sorry, this is where communications is. And if we're going to be honest with ourselves, maybe not, maybe that's the whole point, right? No, I don't want to. I want my way. I don't mind cannibalizing another group of people because they're not the same as me. Their external qualities are different than me. If we're going to have a meaningful conversation, if we're going to use these strategies, methodologies, these learnings, these teachings, then I honestly believe that there is a connection. If we fracture the conversation, then we're always going to talk about the disparity. If we pull the veil back and realize that someone's ancestors were also subject to colonization. They were also subject to a breeding out process. They were also ripped from their lands. Then the conversation is more earnest. And ironically, you can see the insecurity in their body language. You can feel the insecurity in their words. You can sense that they're not as confident in their presence. So they hide behind policy and procedure. They hide behind an illusion that society favors one over another. And it's perpetuated, so it becomes reality. Right? You keep driving. There's a great discussion we had a while ago about HR and where did HR come from and who were the engineers of human resources. Even the term human resources, that's about as warm and fuzzy as Hannibal the Cannibal. Right? Let's bring in Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, that's right, cannibalism. The nice thing about Malanga tea is whether it's hot or cold or warm, tepid, it tastes delicious. Gives you that energy to deal with life. Okay, let's do a kind of recap here. The conversation behind the trauma. I think it is time, long past, that we bring the historical perspective of the angst between groups, people, age. We call them generation gaps. I call them interest gaps. We begin to bring the historical perspective of where we have come from and quickly move forward, work with these kinds of incredibly powerful questions, revealing questions that dumb down the ugly talk, and call it the ugly talk. And if you can't engage in a meaningful conversation with respect for those at the table, then you're just not ready for this. You see, we can't keep dumbing down the question for the Neanderthal in the room. It's just not going to continue. We did it for the last 4 years with an individual that literally ripped families who were at one time, at least, and seemingly moving together, thinking and supporting one another. Perhaps that's the beauty of what he did. Think about it. Oh, I know it's a difficult question. I know it's a difficult construct. But think about it. He unveiled the hypocrisy of families. He revealed the hypocrisy of families. The true fear that we hold close to our hearts, close to our minds, that we don't want other people to know, to reveal to other people. And especially people within our family. You can't get much closer than that, however family is defined by you. So if we are on this path, we have to also consider what this angst, this trauma reveals. That's why I said the conversation behind the trauma, a little bit each day, right? Most of us cannot handle a tsunami expression of our siblings, parents' perspectives, those that we bring into the family, the in-laws. Most of us can't handle that conversation because we haven't been taught, we haven't been designed, we haven't been programmed, we have not been introduced. So the benefit here, why do it, right? Why do it? Why go there? Because we want to elevate the species. We don't want our next generation to be trapped in this mental quagmire, this quicksand, if you will, right? We don't want that. I don't want my kids, my nephews, my nieces to be trapped with, well, this is the way it is and I can't do anything about it. Then what's the point? We want to arm them with perspectives and the ability, the skill sets to begin to strip away the ugly conversations and bring a more meaningful sense to life. And I honestly believe solution focused brief questions begins to address that. It begins to address that. Why do I say that? If you've ever studied theology, another tough subject based on how many Westerners approach it. Okay? It's a tough subject based on how Westerners approach it. Yet, if we say our intent is to learn from one another and to see what similarities there are and how we can take those similarities and create bonds, right? We want to take those similarities, remember the I think it's called a bubble graph. And from data that's collected, it shows groupings of intensity of an occurrence, of a preference, of an expressed opinion. And so I'm thinking, again, I'm using business and personal processes and methodologies to address life. Kind of makes sense to me. And I'm saying, if we found clusters of similar interests, thinking, processes, methodologies, ways of addressing challenges, even if they're very small, 5% of the population approaches the situation or would approach a situation. And we can then build on that. Eventually we have crossover. You see it in much of the data that's done by business. What I'm saying, let's take that and apply it to the human condition, a human thought process, and in the conversations that we have, so we can show people visually. Remember, the research shows that most of us are visual creatures. We take in information visually. So if we took that and show the blending of interests, even if they're 5%, 3%, it doesn't matter. Our goal, our intent is to eventually have complete overlay and then go deep, So take people from different cultures, take people from different theologies, take people from different ideologies. Can we elevate the conversation? Could we have a Putin and a Biden, right? Not surface, agreeing, but humanity. Take out the word ideology and bring in humanity. Where are we here? We are looking at the time. Solution focused brief questions. I have to start throwing out some questions again, because I believe in some of the response I'm getting, people are finding it refreshing that the questions to their challenges are more future positioned, right? Instead of this is your past, this is what was done to you, let me hang on to that, and even though it's dragging me down, drowning me, I can do nothing about that. Creating a future best self sometimes requires us to reflect on our past experience, right? The good, the bad, and the desire to repeat. This is something that, again, from my research, my reading, my interests, from my engagement with people that I work with, the good, the bad, and the desire to repeat. Remember, we gave and shared with you a construct called staying in the zone. And many, the best of the best in athletes, sports, they stay in that zone once they achieve that high level of mental achievement. So you've just won the Gold Cup. You've just won the best of the best with sprinkles on top awards. Okay, you've done it. Stay in that zone. We want to repeat that. And we can only do that through immediate reflection. That's why in the military, they're called drills. In self-defense, they're called katas. Right? In the fire department, they do drills. Because once you start unconsciously learning something, so you have to look at it, you have to, in learning and training, we say, I do it, we do it, you do it. Right? That's more the academic. Right? I do it, we do it, you do it. Then you become conscious of what you're doing. You now need to put it in the right sequence. Then you become conscious and you're doing it relatively, basically on your own, before you're instructed, before you're shown, before someone else actually does it for you and then watches you create that outcome, that desire. You go through exercises. In the theater, you have rehearsals. You do it over and over and over. And what you're looking for is the natural behavior, your personality in that character, right? You're looking for your personality in that character. Well, can't we take any one of those approaches or all of them? I'm greedy. I want all of them. Show me how the top performing sports athlete does it and stays in the zone. Show me how some of the best opera singers or the best actors know the nuances and cadences of and the movements and the subtleties. Comedians, excellent opportunity. Go to a comedy club and watch how they engage with the audience and how they use a pause, how they use their arms, their position, the body position. How do you use all of that to your favor? Because it's all forms of communication. Case in point, my wife wears the face mask. We all wear face masks, but hers has a plastic shield so you can see the mouth. You can also see expressions. Those are two communications right there. I can see your mouth and then I can see your expression. Initially, with the mask across hair, you only see the eyes. And in many cases, we misinterpret what the eyes are saying. And the young man behind the counter asked, where did you get that from? Lo and behold, guess what? He has a nephew, a relative, who only does sign language. So he finds it very difficult, and he has been finding it up until now, finding it very difficult to, when they're in public, to communicate. You have to pull the mask down. Then you get some idiot schmuck saying, put your mask up. Well, he doesn't speak. I don't care. He only knows sign language. Too bad. How endearing we are to one another. Let me suck your blood and taste you. No, totally tangent thought there. Anyway, back to the story. So he says, where do you get it from? My wife talks about it. She goes on her phone, pulls up the resource, sends it to him. He sees it on his phone, says, wow, thank you very much. Boom. Rapport building, relationship building, solution-focused brief methodology. Solution-focused brief questions, methodology. What's the future? You can craft that future by helping that other person. And we do that constantly, boom, 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 during the course of the day, constantly. Met a gentleman at, my goodness, at a hardware store. He must have been like 100 years old. And he was working with NASA. We spoke, he had a ceramic blade. I don't think I've ever seen one, quite frankly. I'm thinking, ceramic is pots, pans. No, he had a ceramic blade. He started cutting his brisket and it broke. I said, maybe it's fractured inside. As soon as I said that word, boom, conversation changed. He's talking about NASA. He's talking about Plymouth meeting in Pennsylvania where he was, doing QC for NASA. We talked about the spaceship, the space flight, now the space station, and then the commercialization. Boom, totally different trajectory. Or we can look at each other and say, You represent this and you represent that, and you did this to my culture and you did that to my race. Really? Is that the best we can do? All you can do is all you can do. If you don't have fun with this stuff, go to another station. There, gummit. Okay. Desire to repeat. And then cheers. Desire, because you're on the right track. And when you go out in public, yeah, you have to find, dare I say, like-minded people. I don't want to be caught in a bucket. Perhaps you want to find like-minded people who are willing to question, seek validation, and then extrapolate as to how can we use this information further. And that's what I am taking away from solution focused brief questions. It's not the end all be all. It's the portal to the beginning of another level of learning and engagement. We have been taught through this pedagogy system that this is all you need to learn. Right here, boom, that's it. That is such an insult to the construct of learning. One, you have the information itself. How is that brought to the table, has been brought or introduced to you? Two, who is instructing? Three, who are learning that when they receive the information, just like in a conversation, how is it interpreted? Back to those 5 questions, right? 4, in what circumstances is it being applied? Is it being used? 5, over time, does the meaning change, morph? And we go on and on and on. Culture, theology, the conversation you're having in your mind and how you interpret that data, the conversation you're not having in that mind, and therefore the opportunity lost, the appropriateness of using the information. Learning is exponential. It keeps growing. It keeps growing. And it's only because we have been introduced to learning in a very guarded way, right, that we then dumb ourselves down when we start to realize how little we actually know, how little our capabilities are in engaging with one another, and the emotional ignorance that we feel when we're not connecting, when we don't connect, when we don't want to connect. Sometimes we don't want to connect. No, I don't want that. I had an interesting conversation with a pastor once. Pastor, one of them people, those people. And I was talking about 4 elements of life. I call them 4 elements. We're born from the chimps. We are Big Bang, Adam and Eve, my favorite, reptiles. And then I threw in other. And she was like, no, absolutely not. We're Adam and Eve. I said, okay. Okay. And her last parting words were, I know all that I need to know. There's nothing more. I said, oh, okay. Full stop with an exclamation mark and an emoji. Unbelievable. The conversations, if they're not in that bucket, in that box, we tend to throw it out and we just throw it away. We discard it. We're insecure at best. Instead of saying, let me understand what you're saying, the perspective you bring. The conversation behind the trauma is so much larger than what is first presented. And the experience I'm having, the people I'm working with, are the same people that I grew up with. The difference is the meaning. The difference is one's sense of where they are, what they've achieved, what they haven't achieved. And in business, we have to bring those understandings to the front. We have to address them, otherwise we're not going to connect meaningfully. It's not going to be long term, and it's not going to be sustainable. And most importantly, it's not going to be rich. Rich in terms of, I want to get back to that individual and talk with them. I feel comfortable. I feel safe. I was going to get into some other information, but we really don't have the time. Really quickly, experiences, disasters that you've gone through, stories that you hear about other countries. I remember one specifically, the Soviet Union annexing Czechoslovakia. I have the book, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. That has traumatized me. The World Trade disasters, changes in our life. I had a good friend, Alan Young, got hit 3, if not 4 times in the head, once by a door, another by a stone, in rugby. And what was happening was his eyesight. He was losing his eyesight. I don't know how he's doing now, but he lost his eyesight. Mark McDonald, his father was part of the diamond industry. He lost his son when he was still very young, early 20s. Ernest Carl, father died when he was very young. He was pulled out of the school. These are all trauma stories. At the same time, you have the positive stories. When my parents introduced me to the school, Park College, I was ecstatic. Yeah, I wanted to branch out. When we were coming to America, absolutely wanted to branch out. There was a counter to that. But let's stay positive. Meeting my wife, best thing could have happened to me. The experiences that we've had, the animals that we've had, they've taught me so much. Unequivocal. Yeah, there you go. The conversation behind the trauma. Address it a little bit at a time. Use solution-focused brief questions because it's forward-thinking, forward-looking. It's projecting our most desired goals and, most importantly, our energy, quite frankly. Creating a future best self sometimes requires us to reflect on our past experiences, the good, the bad, and the desired to repeat. Are you desiring to repeat? Can you construct that and see the benefit for yourself? I certainly hope so. I will see you guys, hopefully, tomorrow. Take care.